Hi guys, and welcome back to Between the Sessions, and today's video is going to be all talking about developing self-compassion. This is one of 3 videos, so this one is really just explaining to you what self-compassion is, and then the subsequent 2 videos are going to be talking you through exercises that you can practice in your own time to start to develop more self-compassion. But as always, we like to explain the theory behind it before we go into the exercises. Now, you may have touched upon this during treatment with myself or Artie. If you've touched upon it with myself, you'll notice I draw lots of diagrams. I'm going to do the same here. And if you stumbled across this on YouTube, then watch it, take it in, and follow the exercise anyway. Before we go any further, I'd just like to explain to you that actually the 2 kind of models behind this are compassion-focused therapy, developed by Paul Gilbert, psychologist here in England, and then we've got a psychologist in America, Christian Neff, who developed more around self-compassion. So we're going to pull on those 2 theories, and then we're going to interpret it and just basically explain it in simple terms so that you guys can understand the basics and the understanding behind compassion and self-compassion. So let's get straight into that. So the compassion model, or compassion focus model, consists of 3 main systems, and they are the threat system, the drive system, and the compassion system. I like to refer to these as the threat system. I like to refer to as the bully system, or the bullying voice in our own heads. The drive is that motivator, and the compassion is the soothing system, the thing that takes care of us. But we'll go into that in more details. But I'd like to start off with the threat system. Now, you've got to remember, guys, all of these systems are very useful in our everyday lives. The threat system is very useful when we are presented with danger. Now, as evolution has happened to us, our brains have developed. In the earlier days, our brains recognized physical danger, and when we had physical danger, we reacted in the way of getting anxiety, anger, and maybe disgust. And then from those emotional reactions, we had behaviors such as avoidance, fight or flight, or seeking safety. Now, I know they're very similar, but we could break them down and explain them more. Now, that's not an endless list. There's lots of different behaviors connected to that. When those are activated, hopefully we get to a point where we're safe and the danger is no longer there. This is the correct use of the threat system. However, due to evolution and our brains have developed more complex, we're no longer presented with the physical dangers we used to be. So what we've done is, unfortunately, as society has developed and we've evolved as human beings, we've become very sensitive to our emotional needs, and we've become very sensitive to emotional danger, things that could make us emotionally upset rather than physically in danger. So let's talk you through an example of how the threat system can be not activated in the correct way. So let's get rid of these diagrams here. So instead of having a physical danger, let's imagine that we perceive a danger, or we think of a danger, and we think of it more of an emotional danger. So we may get thoughts like, people will hurt me, don't trust them, everyone is going to think you could finish that sentence with a million different examples there. And what we can see here is these are cognitions, these are more thoughts that something bad's going to happen. They will still trigger off the same kind of reactions. They'll still trigger off anxiety, they'll still trigger off anger, and they could still trigger off disgust as well. Yet again, when we have those kind of cognitions, we would normally try and avoid situations. Let's get rid of fight and flight and seeking safety, and let's replace it with some more practical examples of behaviors. They may be examples, but also there's some other ones here. So when we get those kind of thoughts, we may avoid, but we also may pressurize ourselves to do better. So to be more liked, to be more accepted. We may seek reassurance from people. Are people going to hurt me? Can I trust you? And then more importantly, I think this is really important when the threat system isn't working right, is we can become quite self-destructive. This self-destruct is very, very important, I think. And that is where we have further cognitions and further beliefs based upon that original perceived threat. So those kind of things could be, you're worthless, or I'm worthless. Everyone is laughing at you. This is your own fault. We could end that list endlessly. And self-destructive because we'll keep repetitively thinking of those. When we think of those things, it reinforces the threat system. The threat system isn't doing what it was supposed to be designed for. And what it does is it further creates secondary emotions such as sadness, depression, and unfortunately low self-esteem. Can you see how that works? How the threat system can be very effective when it's dealing with an actual presenting danger, but how it can be misused in our own minds when we perceive emotional threats or physical threats, then we think about them and predict them in that sense. Let's move away from threat, and I want to move on to drive system now. Now the drive system is that one that sits between them, and it's the kind of key that either motivates the threat or the compassion, which we'll come back to in a moment. The drive system, like I said earlier on, is normally about what motivates us to doing things. And when we're motivated, it's what are we motivated to achieve? So the drive system really is about motivation, achieving. It gives us a focus. It allows us to engage in the things we want to, and hopefully it motivates us to give ourselves some determination for it. The drive system is also designed to, and primarily designed to, seeking out our needs. Now, from an evolutionary point of view, the drive, the thing that motivates us, the thing that focuses, are things like we seek out pleasure, we seek out our survival needs such as food, and then also we seek out our emotional needs. So that can be enjoyment, pleasure, that could be lots of different things. Similar to the threat system, unfortunately, as evolution has happened and society has changed, drive system can be used in the maybe incorrect way or maybe maladaptive to how we are really. And what I mean by that is, instead of just seeking out food and emotional needs, because society has changed, I'm not blaming society for everything here, guys, but it kind of does serve a purpose. When we talk about emotional needs met, we used to get our emotional needs met on a face-to-face basis. Now, as social media is taking off, our emotional needs are met kind of artificially, and our food can be met rather than having nutritious food. We can be eating a lot of junk food, a lot of high sugar food. So we can see here that what our focus is and what our motivation is can be maladaptive in that sense. And that can be that we create things like stimulant needs, coffee, Red Bulls, you name it, anything that's a stimulant. We can be seeking out, we can be craving those kind of bad foods and things like that. And furthermore, unfortunately, we all have addictions of some sort nowadays. So you see here how the focus and the engagement can be very misused in the sense when the drive is being driven by those kind of side of things. Let's move on to compassion, because compassion is the one that really is, like I said to you at the start of the video, it isn't misused, but what it can be is not used, or not used to its full potential. Now, like I said to you at the start, we have the bully system or the threat system, we have the motivation system. We have this one I like to think of as the soothing system. And this is that part of us that will keep ourselves calm, that will make ourselves feel quite self-secure, that will give ourselves self-comfort or make us feel comfort. And from that we can have enjoyment, we can have pleasure. Now, I know this next word is going to sound a little bit cheesy, guys, but what I do believe in is that it creates love. Now, I'm not talking about just love. I think it's an overused word sometimes. But when I'm talking about love is I'm talking about self-love and love for others. Now, when I'm talking about self-love, it's the self, the soothing. This is within us. This is what we seek from within ourselves. Now, if we can have love for ourselves and love for others, normally what that would do is the compassion system will allow us to have trust. Now, if you remember earlier on, the example I gave you in the threat system was this not trusting people, and trust is quite a big thing in life. So you think about that bond to other people is a really, really strong thing. So if we're activating the soothing system, hopefully these things are activated. Let's go on to me explaining a little bit more about what compassion really consists of, because I believe that compassion consists of 3 elements. And those 3 elements are receiving compassion from other people, giving compassion to other people, and the final part is giving compassion to ourselves. And this is the real key point. So you can see here that I believe that in an ideal world, these 3 elements within the compassion model are equally balanced, and if we can have that in our lives, then we'll be able to have quite an emotional, sensitive, but emotional regulated kind of life. Let me show you an example of what tends to happen more often than not. So let's get rid of these for a second. Like I said, guys, if I had money for every time I saw what I'm about to show you now, I would not have a mortgage. I would have no debts in my life, because I've seen this so many times in the last 10 years. Not only with clients, but I also see it with therapists. I supervise therapists, and often I'm looking at what their compassion is there. Often people in caring kind of jobs, mothers, fathers, teachers, social workers, nurses, anything that involves caring for other people, you'll often find there being some kind of misbalance in that. So let me explain what normally happens here. So the first thing we notice with compassion is that we often don't give enough compassion to ourselves. This is where we don't have enough importance on that, and we feel either bad for doing it, or society kind of makes us feel bad for being self-compassionate. You get the word selfish thrown around quite a lot. You also get thrown around quite a lot that in an expectation that we can only enjoy something when we can justify why we can enjoy it. Like if I've been work hard all week and then I want to go to the cinema on a Friday night, I have to say, well, in my head I catch myself saying, I can go to the cinema tonight because I've had a really hard work, I've worked really hard this week. Why do we have to have in our heads this, I must do something hard before I can give myself something nice? And why do other people, when we try and put self-compassion on ourselves, see that as a negative thing? They call people selfish, they say it's self-centered. It's not. It's about getting those three balanced. And this is the problem I find in most of the treatment I do with this, is that people don't have enough compassion to the self. Something else that happens, especially with depressed people or people who have low self-esteem, is this compassion from others they don't accept. So people try to give it, but we reject it. Probably because we don't feel like we're worth it, or we don't trust it, but we don't receive it enough from other people. The final part with this model is that like I said to you before, most people in caring industry or work or a part of their life is what they do is they give far too much compassion to other people. Now, I'm not saying don't be compassionate to people, but what I'm saying is it's got to be in balance, and there's all three have got to be quite regulated together. Because what happens often is when people give too much compassion to other people, is we get something called compassion fatigue. We burn out to a point where we just feel numb and tired all the time. You can see here actually how this doesn't work. And this is where we're going to be working on mostly in treatment, is we're going to developing more, if we can create more self-compassion, then hopefully the other two will become more regulated alongside that, and we can get an equilibrium between all three of them. So I want to ask you one last thing before we finish this video, and I want to ask yourselves, what drives you? And what I mean what drives you is, if you go back to that original system, the drive, and remember what I talked to you about earlier, I said it's a motivator. What motivates you? And this is how when I said to you before how the drive sits in between the compassion and the threat, let me show you an example. We can either be motivated by compassion or we can be motivated by threat. Now let me give you a personal example of mine. I love going to the gym. What motivates me to go to the gym every day is my compassionate system. I absolutely love going to the gym. I love doing sports. I just love any physical exercise, and it's always driven by compassion. Listen to what I'm saying. I love going to the gym. This is activated from that compassionate side. Why is it? Because I enjoy it. I find it skillful. I like mastering skills. I like being with other people, so it creates that bond and that trust, and I have a sense of achievement from that. And when I'm activated from this compassionate side, I normally get thoughts that I'm getting better at this, and yet again that reinforces that achievement. So you can see here that is from a compassionate side. Let me give you an example on how it can be if you're activated and you're driven by your threat system. So in the threat system, when that drives people to go to the gym, it may be driven because we may have thoughts that if I don't go, I'm going to be fat, I'm never going to be healthy, I'm ugly, if I go to the gym, I might get better. These are negative kind of reactions. And when we get those kind of things, what drives us to go is, if I don't go, I'm going to get fat, I'm going to put weight on. So we're driven by fear. And because of that, we have little enjoyment. The amount of times I hear people saying, oh God, I can't be asked to go to the gym today, or I really don't want to do that. Now that can be quite normal. That can be just from tiredness, but it can also come because you're actually trying to motivate yourself from a threat response, really. When people are responding from a threat response, they normally feel quite isolated. They're kind of in their own heads. They're focusing on this. If I don't go, I'm going to be fat. And yet again, it's normally reinforced by feelings of not being good enough. So here you can see, I'm using the gym as an example, but I guarantee you can think of examples that are either driven by your threat system or your compassionate system. Now don't get me wrong, not every single thing in life fits into this model. I work a late night Monday and then have to get back early in the morning on a Tuesday morning. I'm often not motivated to get to work. It's not that I don't enjoy my job, it's the fact that I'm just tired. So where does that fit within that compassionate threat model? It doesn't really fit in there. Sometimes it's just physical tiredness. However, I can adapt a more self-compassionate model from that, and I can be saying to myself, Richard, on a Monday night, you know you get home late, get straight to bed. Don't mess around doing any paperwork, just get to bed because you know you'll be tired. See how that's kind of looking after myself. Unfortunately, I know this sounds really simple and it's not rocket science. Most of the things I've ever talked to you guys about isn't rocket science. But what happens is we forget these things, which is crazy. So between the sessions, hopefully you found that quite interesting. What I want you to do, guys, is I want you just to think about and make some notes on for the next session we have together if we're in therapy. If not, then just make these notes anyway. And consider this. What motivates me? What drives me? The tasks that I find hard in life, am I being motivated by a threat response? Is that why I'm not motivated to do these things? And what am I motivated about from a compassionate side of things? What do I enjoy doing and I'll always do? I want you guys to make some notes on that, and hopefully you can start to see how this reflects in your own life. Guys, in the next 2 videos, in the links below, you'll find exercises for us to start to develop this self-compassion. We'll talk through some examples here on YouTube, and then we'll work on some more material in treatment. If you're not in treatment with ourselves, we have a website coming up soon, so you'll be able to download some more forms and some more documentation that goes alongside this as well. We're just trying to get you guys being a bit more self-compassionate. So hopefully this has been useful for you guys, and hope you've enjoyed it. Watch it again, and look forward to seeing you in the next videos. Take care, guys. See you soon.